Unfortunately, due to false copyright strikes, we were on a forced hiatus for the last couple weeks, causing us to miss out on the opportunity to discuss the latest couple chapters of My Hero Academia with you guys. Apologies for all that, but we're here now and have you guys covered once again. Now, we have some thoughts on Deku's return to UA and what's to come next, so in this video, we'll be going over all of that. To support our return, help us get some momentum on the channel by leaving a like and comment on this video would be very much appreciated. With that said, let's get into this discussion on what will come next following Deku's return to UA. From this point forward, we believe the story will be totally different from anything we've seen up to this point. It can't be like what it's been previously. To understand that though, it's important to note the most recent fundamental changes. For starters, I think we can all agree that a return to the regular hero school life is impossible. The obvious issue is class being delayed, leaving Class 1A as still first year students, despite this series going on for like 7 years now. The only way I can see this changing is if the school decides to go the route of trying to create some sense of normalcy during this dark period, but that's unlikely. The UA staff is made up of teachers like Aizawa, heroes who are now more busy maintaining order. Tons of heroes have retired and so society is short-handed. They need all the help they can get out there in the streets, preventing chaos. It's unlikely there's time to dedicate to teaching and lesson planning and whatever else teaching entails. There are heroes from abroad coming to help, but that won't totally solve this shortage issue. They're coming to assist, not to let the heroes of Japan kick their feet up. A second reason it's unlikely classes will continue is that Deku is not returning to UA to take it easy. He's coming to refresh, breathe, and move forward with his class and the other pro heroes. Uraraka made this clear during her speech that led to Deku finally being welcomed back. The same speech that she low-key cooked him for being filthy in. She knows he needs rest, and later in the speech, the civilians were starting to see this too. We can see that from the star guy who was present in chapter 1, mentioning that it's hard to find supplies and goods outside these days. So Deku, and really the story, won't be returning to UA to do what it had done previously. But also we won't be returning to the setup we had prior to Class 1A making an appearance. The villain of the week setup we had going on for a bit there was interesting because of Deku's breakdown. At its core, that format gets dry quickly, especially when the story is not made to revolve around that kind of format. Lady Nagan was the exception, but besides that, none of the other enemies from Tartarus had any depth to them. So even if Class 1A was involved in these fights, it would get stale rather fast. More than ever before, we think Class 1A will be involved in the story, but not in this sort of way. We know that this is the final act of the story, and acts are made up of several arcs. This was stated in an earlier video, but for those that haven't heard us say this, here's how we break up the acts so far. Act 1 ended with All Might losing his power after beating All for One. Act 2 ended with the conclusion of the War arc, and we're now in Act 3, which began with Deku's Rogue arc. We expect this to go somewhat similar to the War arc that concluded Naruto Shippuden. There's a central conflict that we're going towards while handling other things along the way. In the context of My Hero Academia, this means we'll progress towards the final fight while handling smaller incidents like the defeat of Toga and Stain, or resolving the overhaul boss situation. After some rest, it's possible we see Deku actually train his new quirks. He was simply learning them on the fly during his last few encounters, so to actually try to master them would be huge. Things went well figuring it out on the spot, but for the big fight that awaits, actual training would probably be key. A lot of you guys will remember that we predicted Danger Sense being one of Deku's quirks, and let me just say I love bringing that up, but yeah, we did that by noticing all the already unlocked quirks were somewhat similar to those of his classmates. The quirks unlocked after Danger Sense like Smokescreen also share similar properties with those of his classmates, so training with them is possible. Hard to say if this will be made into some huge ordeal or something more casual, like when Uraraka was unknowingly helping Deku prepare for Float. Let us know in the comments, do you want to see more training intensive arcs again? Maybe something involving Shigetsu now that UA is more directly tied to them, or is the time for all that gone? Personally leaning towards something smaller and more casual. Overhaul would be my best guess on what the story tackles first out of the known coming events. It's interesting, but also the least interesting choices from the list. It's hard to say what his role in the story would become. He's not exactly redeemable, so he can't exactly join the alliance or anything. It may just serve as a way of showing Eri's growth, her strength now after being freed from Chisaki's hold. Stain is a bit more interesting. He kind of personally called out All Might, but let's be honest, All Might won't be the one to stop him. In that case then, who? A fight with Deku would be the same as the muscular rematch, not very interesting. A rematch with Ida alone might be the choice. A more equal matchup and a chance for Ida to show Stain, and really himself, that he's come a long way since that time. Another 3 vs 1 though is probably unnecessary. I think Shoto, Deku, and Ida could each beat Stain one-on-one now. A curveball with Stain, however, is the information that he passed on to All Might that he gained from his time in Tartarus. I'm not exactly sure what that could be. There's only so much he could have heard in there. What could Stain know that would be beneficial to the heroes now? This might end up being the best part about his return, but we'll have to wait and see. Up next we have Toga. I think most of us can agree we'd like to see Toga be defeated by Uraraka. Against Deku may not be a very interesting matchup, nowhere near an equal fight. The best part about Toga in the end will be the dialogue that's had, meaning her feelings on society and heroes in general. Toga seems to have a lot on her mind, and I can't wait to see how the story tackles that. So all of those things and more, like Shirakumo's restoration, will be left to tackle while we head towards that final fight. A lot was resolved during that final war arc in Naruto that I keep mentioning, and I think we'll see the same thing here. Out of everything, what I'm looking forward to most is the inevitable fight between Shigaraki and All For One, the moment where the student surpasses the master. Both cannot be around at the end. Shigaraki is the main antagonist, and with that fight, it will become solidified. So while we head to that final fight, I think we'll see My Hero Academia begin to wrap up everything it set up throughout the story. The search for Shigaraki will continue because that was the whole point of the Rogue arc. They want to stop Shigaraki before he's able to take One For All. But the search strategy will be a bit different, I imagine. Maybe more specific operations instead of an endless patrol. Up to this point, the story has rarely shown us anyone at full strength. There's often some type of factor limiting power, so I'm hoping that Shigaraki is not found anytime soon. While we're not entering a war arc, the unity right now the heroes have resembles that of an army. Society is more together right now than it's been previously. No longer are the heroes performers on a stage being watched by an audience, so teamwork will be a huge factor in this final act. We cannot go back to the peaceful slice of life content. It would feel too detached from the stressful situation they're in now, so we'll see what happens from here on out. Just wanted to share some thoughts on the recent chapter developments and let you guys know what we see ahead at the moment. Thanks for watching the video, and if you haven't already, please be sure to drop a like and comment to help us out with this YouTube return. Plot Armor is back. We have you guys covered. Lastly, if you're new around here, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We're closing in on 300,000 subscribers and could really use your help. Until next time, keep that plot armor on you. I'm KJ. Have a great day. Goodbye.